other tasks, you could. But then there are issues there as well, and very often you've already got a staff, and they're doing the other tasks, and you don't need this person to do the other tasks. So again, we're in a down economy. What you could do, and maybe what you ought to do, is look around and say, okay, look, everybody's workload has been reduced by 1/4 or by 1/3 because there's just less stuff going on. That's just the way it is. Less funds coming in, less people entering our programs. What can we do? So if I look at any individual employee, I would say, well, are they doing 3/4 of the work after all? And I don't want to lose their skills. But if you look at the overall organization, you probably ought to be saying, well, okay, fine. If I've got 100 people, and all of them are working at 75% of the hours they have available, maybe I would have 75 people, and just lay off 25 people, and that may mean that. Not may mean, it will mean that responsibilities are reallocated and reassigned. 25 people are not sitting there doing nothing. They're busy 75% of the time. So do you have enough excess staff to be able to, enough excess skills among your staff to be able to do that? Cross-trained staff members. So there are, it may be necessary, and in that case, you're not paying for hours not used. So let's review some of the questions we have to ask ourselves in the issue of hourly versus full-time. Do you really need 40 hours a week to perform the job function? And again, 40 hours is just the typical example. A fixed number of hours, whatever that fixed number of hours may be. Do you really need that to perform that job function? Is the position one in which experience with your organization counts for a lot? In other words, you've got a managerial position, and to do that position well, you've got to have been in your organization for a couple of years and learned the corporate culture, learned all the clients, learned all the nuances of your funding sources, learned a lot of different things. So if the position is one like that, well, you really want somebody who's going to view it as a career, and so you should favor a full-time worker. If the position is one where you can basically put in one person, take them out, put in another person, take them out, plug and play, and you really can't fill up the 40 hours a week, or you can't guarantee that you'll fill them up, an hourly worker probably a better choice in that case. Can you afford the best candidate on a full-time basis? Now, this is something we haven't spoken about before, but it's a very important question. You've got a really top-notch person who could bring a lot of value to your organization. If you hire them on a full-time basis, they'll be unaffordable. Oh, sure, I'll work for you. I cost $250,000 a year. So, you keel over. You can't afford anything near $250,000 a year. Perhaps, even though you know very well that if they're not working for you full-time, you won't be getting, the benefit of their mental preoccupation with your organization while they sleep, still at all, on the basis of their experience or connections or brilliance or whatever, it is that makes them valuable to you, whatever talents they may have, you may want to come to them and say, look, I can't afford you full-time. I wish I could. I'll hire you quarter-time. Now, the person may or may not take you up on the offer, and that depends if they have other things to do to fill up the rest of their time. But if they will take you up on the offer, then it's very good for you. Now, a lot of times somebody like that is de facto going to be a consultant. He'll say, yeah, I'll work for you for a quarter of the time, but I can't make a living like that. I'm going to have to find 3 other clients to fill up the rest of my time, or whatever the case may be. And so we're getting to consultants a little bit later. You're sort of gravitating in that direction, but not necessarily. You can tell somebody, look, I'll hire you now for 3/4 time, with the understanding that by the end of the year, I should be able to afford you full-time. Then you'll join my staff full-time, and if I can't, then our commitments to each other are null and void, and we can each go our own ways. But I expect to be able to hire you for full-time when things get better in 6 months, and so that that can often be a good arrangement. That goes hand in hand with the next with the next bullet item. Will the best candidates work for you, if not on a full-time basis? Because if somebody really is career track oriented, he says, "Look, I know I'm worth $250,000 a year. I've always gotten that, that kind of money. I'm not interested in, the headache of splitting my time and my mental energy and my commuting between this place, that place, and the other place. I want to work for one place, and I have another offer. You want to match it? I'm happy to work for you. You can't? Okay, fine. We're friends. I'm going to go work for the other. We're going to work for the other place. If you can afford the best candidate and you really need them, you may want to bite the bullet. If not, it's obviously not destined to be. Something wrong with this clicker. Okay. Yeah. Questions? Question? No questions. Okay. We're going to take it again. We have the advantages of one as the disadvantages of the other over here. One of the most important advantages working in an office environment, meaning everybody's sitting together in the same premise, the same facility, is that you have the ability to directly interact with your colleagues. Now, today, it's becoming very popular to do home-based work, telecommuting, that kind of a thing. But I can tell you from experience, there is no substitute for direct interaction with your colleagues. And I've been in a situation where I, several months telecommuted, then joined the staff on a more formal basis and worked for them in the office. And it was amazing the additional dimension that opened up once you were there and got the chemistry and had the ability to spontaneously ask somebody a question. Well, you'd think, well, I could just pick up a phone. It's much easier if you just look up and say, what do you think of such and such? And then it's pick up a phone. There's a certain resistance, even today, to pick up a phone or to type an email, which somebody can ignore for a few hours if they want to. So direct interaction with colleagues by far is way on top of the list for office-based work. That's why the island of Manhattan is full of people who come to offices every day from wherever they come from, some of them quite far, primarily in order that they should be able to interact with the colleagues. Things get done much more efficiently that way. Better supervision and management from the standpoint of you as a manager. It's with all that can be said about people are responsible and they'll work just as hard from home and so on. It's still much more compelling to feel the pressure to get the job done. You're sitting in the office and your manager's right over there. And the manager definitely has more control over how the job gets done, how quickly the job gets done, how well the job gets done, if the people who are being managed are physically on the same premise and they can walk in and stare them down if they need to in order to make sure that they're getting the job done. And an office is a much more professional environment. We've all, heard or encountered situations where, you make a call, it's to the office to a number, it's to an office number. These days, you can call 212, 913-5000, which sounds exactly like a Phantom Manhattan office. And the phone, the phone call is routed to somebody's den, and somebody tries to answer the phone professionally. Hi, Mary speaking. And then you hear, "Mommy, I'm on a battle," in the background, or the dog is barking, or some other, kind of a thing. It doesn't really give for a professional, kind of impression on your client, or even just a colleague. They know you, but how would you feel? You're working at home, and you've assured your boss, I can work just as well from home. And your boss calls you, and while they're talking, the boss hears, "Mommy, I want a bottle." Well, hey, wait a minute here. That doesn't sound to me like you're working just as well from home. Nobody in your office comes over and says they want a bottle. You hope not, anyway. So there are, definitely advantages for working in an office, and I don't need to belabor the obvious over here. As I said, that's why everybody's sitting here working in the office. However, there are reasons why home-based work is becoming so popular. Number one, office-based is more expensive. Now, why is that? And, let's talk about a little bit about the concept of cost per seat. What does that mean? I'll give you an example. This is my real life example. I was running a business, and we had we took a new facility, and it was a little bit larger than we needed because we figured we needed to accommodate growth. Just take a space and squeeze in as many people as you have and hope for the best. And we needed to figure out what the office was costing us. And the only way to do that, the accountants told us, was to look at the total number of seats in the place, seats meaning how many workers the place can accommodate, divide that into your total rent, and that's your monthly cost per seat. Now, what you got to do beyond that is figure out how many hours in the month your staff typically puts in, and you come to a cost per seat per hour. At our facility, the cost per seat per hour was nearly $2. What does that mean? It means that if you're paying somebody $10 an hour, if they're coming to work in your office, your actual cost is $12 an hour, because you're paying for that. Actually included not just the rent; it included rent, it included the heating and the electricity, and all the other expenses that overall hit the whole office and would apply only to somebody working from the office. Now, adding $2 an hour to your cost makes a tremendous difference. I was running a for-profit organization at the time, and basically that meant if we were pricing something out to a client, we would have to add $2 an hour to our cost before we calculated the margin and the final fee. So somebody whose workforce was primarily home-based could undercut us, by at least $2 an hour, make the same amount of money, and be much more likely to get the client because their costs were just that much lower. Now, it's a little bit a slippery slope. You've got the office anyway. You've got the seats anyway. The seat is full, the seat is empty. It's pretty much costing you the same money. So if you've got an empty seat and you want to hire somebody, and they're going to be sitting in the seat that would otherwise be empty, that person's not incurring you an extra $2 per hour cost, because you're already paying the rent. Your landlord is not charging you more or less rent on the basis of how many people are sitting in the premise. But if you make a decision beforehand, 20% of my workforce is going to be working from home, or I have 100% of my workforce, they're going to be 20% of them are going to be working from home once a week. Everybody will be home one day a week. So instead of needing 100 seats, I need 80 seats. So when I'm looking for a premise for my staff, I won't look for one that has 110 seats to accommodate room for growth, whatever. I'll look for one that has 90 seats. And I will, in that case, it'll be a smaller premise, and I will be paying less rent. So in the grand scheme of things, and in the larger picture, if you've got even a portion of your staff home-based, or you rotate your staff and allow people to work from home one day a week, so you're not really losing that much in the way of productivity, because they interact with the clients the other 4 days of the week and so on. But you are gaining a lot in terms of cost per seat. Now, this is not relevant to everybody here. If you're running an organization with 3 people and it's being run out of your living room anyway, there's no cost per seat. It's your living room. You're paying, you're paying for it. Or even if it's a small, storefront, you need to have. If you need to have a physical storefront, and it's going to be too big for your staff anyway, because they don't make storefronts that small to need only 2, to hold on for client interaction. If the answer is yes, then you want an office position. Or you want a hybrid position that has a heavy office component, but you may want to give your people the opportunity to work from home one day a week and rotate your staff and have the lower per seat costs as we described earlier. Is the position primarily a field position? So you've got somebody who goes out and does site visits, 60% of the time. They're visiting that facility and the other facility, and most of the time they're not even in the office anyway. Now,